I felt awful. Just off the phone with my wife of 11 years, the conversation had left her in tears. It was the day after tomorrow, and the weight of the situation pressed heavily on me. 3 years back, I had nearly lost my job because Grace had been so distraught over me missing our anniversary that she demanded I come home. Now, 3 years later, it's her absence on our anniversary, and not a word I uttered could coax her back. It's perplexing why I'm the one feeling so low, but that's the reality. The past 12 years have been the epitome of happiness for me. Grace was 24 when we met, embarking on her career in sales. She had approached our architecture firm to pitch advertising in upscale magazines beyond our budget at the time. Her allure with those dark locks captured my attention. With a little help from my partner, I managed to keep her engaged long enough to secure a date. She later confessed that she knew we couldn't afford her services, but was pleased we made it seem plausible enough for her boss to keep sending her our way until I mustered the courage to ask her out. I cracked a joke about the waiter's toupee, causing her to spurt water out of her nose. That moment, I knew I was in love. We dated for 6 months, and then she moved in with me for another 6 until she could transition from the road to an office. We tied the knot about 4 months after that. Not a single day passes without me feeling like the luckiest man alive for having her as my wife. I reached for the phone once more and dialed my boss's number. I had been there since the inception, back when Neil had founded the company. Our compact team of 4 designers had achieved remarkable breakthroughs, significantly reducing production times across various areas. "Neil, I know you're there. Pick up," I urged into the receiver. I heard him answer. "Travis, I'm swamped right now, you know that." "I'll keep it brief then. I'm leaving immediately and won't be back until Monday," I declared. "What the hell do you mean you're leaving? Where are you off to?" he inquired. "I'm taking off to spend my anniversary with my wife. Catch you on Monday," I responded. "Have a good one, you jerk. And remember to knock before barging in," he jested, laughing. "Wow, your humor is top-notch," I retorted. "You hear that all the time, don't you?" he teased. "Not from anyone who knows you. Hey, apologies, but things have been tense at home lately since they brought in that new guy to head Grace's department. Maybe a night in a hotel bed could ease the tension," I confided. "Well, it certainly can't hurt. Just promise me when you're feeling adventurous, you'll think of me," Neil quipped, chuckling. "You've got a deal. See you Monday," I affirmed. Without disconnecting the call, I dialed Neil's secretary, Batty. She had a knack for sorting things out, and I urgently needed a plane ticket. After the conversation with her, I dashed to my car and headed home to pack. As I packed my suitcase, my cell phone rang. "You've got 45 minutes to reach the airport in time for security check. Your ticket is waiting at the desk under your name." I managed to arrange a return flight for Sunday afternoon at 1:30. Unfortunately, there were no available rooms in the hotel where Grace is staying, so I booked one 2 blocks away. "Have a safe trip, and I'll see you on Monday," Batty informed me before abruptly hanging up. Rushing into the bathroom, I quickly filled my shaving kit and tossed it into my bag. After a swift check around the house and ensuring the coffee maker was switched off for once, I sprinted to my car. Over 15 years, I've learned a few shortcuts, and with a bit of speeding, a lot of speeding, I reached the airport with time to spare. After checking in, going through security, and boarding the plane, I promptly inserted my earbuds and switched on my iPod. I'm not particularly fond of flying, but music helps soothe my nerves enough to keep my hands from clutching the armrests too tightly. 3 hours later, a gentle hand on my shoulder roused me from a pleasant dream involving Grace and me. It dawned on me that I had completely passed out. Sleeping hasn't been coming easy lately. Some of it was work-related stress, but over the past couple of months, things between Grace and me have been strained. Our once vibrant sex life, which thrived just 3 months ago, had dwindled to nothing. It had been over 2 months since she even allowed me close to her. It all began with her informing me about how they had promoted a man from another department to head hers. She was frantic to prove to them that they had made a mistake in overlooking her. For the initial 2 weeks, she would return home drained, obsessing over ways to oust Mr. Marcus Brooks. She even joked about taking extreme measures. However, by the third week, her agitation had subsided, and a few weeks later, she mentioned that they had started collaborating more effectively, eventually being assigned together to pursue a significant account. I began to worry that there might be something more than professional rapport between them, but Grace always reassured me, and aside from our lack of intimacy, she continued to devote as much, if not more, attention to me as before. Retrieving my bag from the overhead compartment, my mind raced with ideas on how to surprise Grace at the restaurant without giving away my presence. Hailing a cab to my hotel, I engaged in some casual conversation with the driver about my situation. To my fortune, he recommended a charming, dimly lit establishment nestled between the two hotels, boasting a romantic ambience with dark dance floors and secluded booths. It sounded perfect, and I expressed my gratitude with a generous tip as I alighted at the curb. After swiftly checking in, I took a brisk shower and hurriedly left the hotel, eager to intercept Grace before she ventured out for dinner. Glancing at the lobby clock, which read just after 5:30, I decided to navigate the crowded streets on foot, estimating that I could reach her destination just as quickly. Following the directions provided by the hotel staff, I strolled leisurely, taking note of the romantic club the cabbie had recommended, conveniently located a few doors down from Grace's hotel. Arriving at the hotel lobby 10 minutes to 6, I joined the line to speak with one of the desk attendants, ready to set my plan in motion. I flashed a warm smile at the receptionist, who motioned me forward. "Hello, I'm Travis Martinez. I'd like to inquire if my wife, Grace, is in her room, and if she is, I'd appreciate a moment to speak with her, please." "Martinez, Grace. Yes, she's staying with us." "Just a moment, and I'll check if she's available," she replied, dialing the room. "I'm sorry, sir, there's no answer. Would you like to leave a message?" "Not at the moment." I was hoping to surprise her. "Tomorrow is our anniversary, so if you wouldn't mind keeping our conversation between us, I'd greatly appreciate it," I requested, hopeful. "Certainly, sir," mum's the word. "I wish you a fantastic day tomorrow," she assured me. "Thank you. I think I'll head to the restaurant now. Maybe I'll get lucky. Good night," I said, departing. Following the aroma wafting from the far end of the lobby, I discovered a bustling room filled with people dining, chatting, and enjoying themselves. The place was teeming with patrons. I didn't rate my chances of finding Grace very high in there. Spotting the restroom tucked away to one side at the back, I figured I could kill two birds with one stone. After a cursory scan of the area, I didn't spot her. Once I finished my business, I lingered at the entrance to the hallway, surveying the room again. It seemed unlikely that I would spot her amidst the crowd. Then, by some stroke of luck, I heard a familiar giggle. It was a long shot, but it sounded like Grace. Peering along the wall, I found my view obstructed by high booths, only catching glimpses of the patrons' faces and heads. I decided against approaching any tables until I could confirm who was seated there, so I retraced my steps across the restaurant, focusing my gaze once more on the wall of booths. Methodically, I began inspecting each booth along the row. It was the third one from the hallway where I spotted her. Grace sat there, laughing and enjoying her meal with a man I didn't recognize. She looked stunning, dressed in the attire she always chose when anticipating a night of dancing, both vertically and horizontally. The ease between them was palpable, and my shock only deepened when Grace casually reached over, playfully snagging a morsel from his plate and popping it into her mouth, all while laughing. When the man appeared slightly miffed, she tenderly stroked his face with the back of her hand. What on earth was happening here? It seemed far more intimate than a mere dinner with a colleague. My grip on the doorframe tightened as I recoiled when he leaned in for a kiss, and Grace met his lips eagerly. Staggering away from the door, I stumbled to the center of the lobby and sank into one of the oversized wingback chairs. My trembling hand rose to my face, a wry smile forming as I observed its tremors. Thankfully, I wasn't in need of wielding a firearm, at least not tonight. I couldn't say how long I remained seated there, my gaze fixed on the dining room. The sound of that familiar giggle drew my attention, and I watched as Grace walked arm in arm with the man, leaning in close, their laughter mingling as she whispered into his ear. They passed within 15 feet of me, engrossed in conversation, but all I could do was fixate on the way Grace looked at him. It was a gaze I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. Suddenly, the air felt suffocating, and I struggled to draw a breath. I leaped out of the chair, my strides purposeful as I made my way towards the exit. Despite my usual inconspicuous stature, the crowd seemed to part effortlessly as I moved through, my expression undoubtedly reflecting my inner turmoil. Thankfully, the revolving door had buffers, preventing me from careening into the street. I reached the curb, standing there, feeling a whirlwind of emotions, pain, anger, sorrow, but it was anger that seemed to dominate. Then, a giggle. My body instinctively whirled around, my gaze fixated on them as they emerged from the door together, heading in the direction of my hotel. I watched as Grace clung to his arm. Leaning into him, their steps synchronized. They turned down the block and disappeared into the very club I had glanced at earlier. Shaking myself out of the trance, I moved towards the doorway, but I slowed down, allowing them time to distance themselves. Taking a moment to collect myself, I drew in several deep breaths, attempting to quell the storm of emotions raging within me. There was no denying the significance of the look I had witnessed, but I craved something more. Clarity, perhaps. With resolve, I pushed open the door and stepped inside, pausing to let my eyes adjust to the dim lighting as I surveyed the room. Spotting them in the far booth, I skirted along the perimeter, making my way towards a small table. The waitress was quick to attend to me, hovering as I took my seat. "What can I get ya, honey?" the waitress chirped. "Scotch, rocks, double," I replied. "Our meeting isn't until 10 tomorrow, so we can stay and celebrate as late as you want," I heard him say to Grace. "I'm so glad you didn't let him guilt you into going home." A giggle. "Go home and miss our 2-month anniversary. No way. I can't believe we've already been together for 2 months, Grace exclaimed, followed by the sound of a kiss. "It would have been longer if you had taken me up on my offer at the end of my first week there," he remarked. "Well, I had to make you think I was a little hard to get. I am supposed to be married, you know." "I couldn't believe it when you walked up to me in front of Viola and asked me out, knowing full well I was married," Grace explained. "Viola was the one who told me you thought I was hot," he revealed. "We need to get something nice for her for getting us together," Grace suggested as their waitress arrived, dropping off their drinks and then departing. "Here's to 2 fantastic months together." "And many more to come," he toasted. "And many more to come," she echoed, clinking glasses. "Here you go, honey. Will that be all?" my waitress asked, setting my drink in front of me. "Oh, yes, that's all," I replied, rising to my feet. I handed her a 10 and then watched as I dipped my finger into the glass. The icy whiskey helped lubricate my finger enough to slide off the band that had been there for so long. It had become such a hassle that I didn't bother removing it anymore. As my hand snapped away with the ring and a fair amount of skin, I glanced at the waitress. "This damn thing gets tight after 11 years, but at least I didn't have to cut off my finger," I remarked to her, picking up the drink and downing it. I slammed the glass onto the table, feeling the burn as it trickled down my throat after 10 years without a drink. "Damn, that hit the spot. Thanks, lady," I muttered before turning towards the booth. As I approached, they were just breaking a kiss. He glanced up, but being a stranger to me, my presence held little significance. Grace, however, turned to look at me. It was a moment worth capturing. The expression on her face could have adorned countless posters, her mouth moving but no words escaping. 2 months, huh? That's quite the milestone. I remember mine, but after 11 years, it loses its charm, I remarked, eyeing him as he looked at her. "Let's see, 2 months, red and gold, isn't it? Well, a couple as adorable as you deserve a gift. Here's the gold," I said, tossing my ring onto the table in Grace's direction, "and here's the red," I added, swinging my fist into his face. "Marcus," Grace half yelled, reaching out to cradle his face in her hands. I felt a satisfying crunch as my fist connected with his nose, but I knew I needed to leave before things escalated further. Turning to face Grace as she tended to the jerk, I spoke sternly. "At some point, tell him he's lucky this didn't happen in my house. Leave a message about where you want your things sent." And if you're wise, which I'm not convinced you are, you won't show up at my doorstep. You might want to ice that nose. I think it's broken, I advised before turning and walking away. I exited the club and set a brisk pace towards my hotel, each stride serving to put more distance between Grace and me. Despite knowing she likely had no idea where I was staying and might not even attempt to track me down after my altercation, I felt an urgent need to create space between us. It had been 2 decades since I last resorted to violence, back when I was 23. One would think I'd have learned something since then. Well, perhaps I had learned one thing: never take anything for granted. It was a lesson I wished I hadn't learned the hard way. Entering the hotel lobby, I made a beeline for the front desk. "Excuse me, do you have the phone numbers for the airlines? I need to book a flight as soon as possible," I requested. "Certainly, sir. Which airline and when and where would you like to go?" the receptionist inquired. I provided her with all the necessary details, and she assured me she would call the room once she had the flight information. I retreated to my room, consumed by disbelief. How had this situation even unfolded? Then it struck me. Grace had missed her calling. The performance she'd been putting on for the past 2 months would have earned her an award. Her acting skills were astounding. Recalling her tearful display on the phone when I tried to guilt her into coming home only fueled my growing anger. I couldn't bear to remain in the room any longer. Grabbing my bag, I descended the stairs to the lobby. As I reached the bottom, the receptionist put down the phone and gestured for me to approach. "Sir, if you leave now, you have an outside chance of catching the last flight tonight. Final check-in is in 30 minutes. If you don't make it, the next flight is in 3 hours, the receptionist informed me. "Thank you. I hope the cab drivers around here are reliable," I replied as I hastily signed the checkout slip she had pushed in front of me. "I'm sorry you had to cut your visit short. Please keep us in mind the next time you're in town," she said with a polite smile. "I have a feeling I won't be forgetting anything about this visit anytime soon," I muttered, making my way towards the door. I dashed out of the lobby and found a cab waiting at the stand just up the street. "I've got $50 that says you can't get me to the airport in less than 30 minutes. I challenged the driver as I jumped into the back seat. "You're on, boss," he replied, snapping me back against the seat. The driver was skilled. He managed to get me to the airport in 20 minutes. I paid him what was on the meter plus the $50 bet, thanked him, and hurried towards my gate. Despite having a few minutes to spare, my nerves were on edge. I anxiously paced around, hoping no one would mistake my restlessness for something suspicious. My mind raced, and I found myself muttering under my breath as I waited for the flight to board. Finally, they called us to board, and I was fortunate enough to have a seat to myself. Unlike before, I didn't feel the need for music this time. There was plenty on my mind to keep me occupied. A sudden thought crossed my mind, and I almost burst out laughing. Grace's mom, Joyce, hadn't exactly been my biggest fan. She had her husband, Henry, wrapped around her finger, treating him like a mushroom, keeping him in the dark and feeding him nonsense. But I never let her get away with it, and she wasn't too pleased about that. I remembered her once telling Grace that I would cheat on her one day, claiming she had caught me checking out other women when we were all together. Throughout the flight, I sat there pondering if this was all really happening. I pulled out the picture I always carried of Grace and me and stared at it. Suddenly, the smiling face beside me seemed to transform into the image of that jerk. I quickly glanced around to ensure no one had seen my reaction before looking back at the photo. It was still me next to Grace, but all I could see was her gazing into his eyes that way. Now she had me questioning everything. Despite the stereotype that men aren't supposed to be the ones who remember things, I considered myself an exception to that rule. From the beginning, Grace had tried to pull the "do you remember this?" or "do you remember that?" card, but I always did. I remembered every conversation, every plan, every little secret shared in the dark. Now I sat there wondering, if I hadn't noticed this going on for 2 months, what else had I missed? The guy had asked her out the first week he met her, and from what she said, the only reason it hadn't happened then was because she wanted to make it look good since she was married. The image of Grace sitting at the table with him tore at my insides. Watching their familiarity, the shared glances, the gentle touches, that simple little kiss, was like a dagger to the heart. Damn it. Even after I rid myself of all her belongings, I knew I'd be haunted by that sight for a long time. The thought of parting with her things sparked a twofold idea. I decided I'd go home, pack it all up, and deliver it to her mother's place. Sure, the old bag would find a way to blame me, but as long as I knew the truth, that's all that mattered. The ding of the seatbelt sign signaled our arrival at the airport, jolting me out of my thoughts. It triggered a bit of white knuckling, but all things considered, I handled the flight better than I ever had before. After we docked at the gate, I waited for the rush of passengers in a hurry to clear out. The last thing I needed was to be pushed too far and lash out. Retrieving my bag from the overhead compartment, I joined the procession into the terminal. Exiting the airport, I made my way straight to my car and queued up in line for the exit. I don't recall much of the drive home, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that I got there. Stepping into the darkened house felt surreal. All I could think was, get used to it, pal. This is how it's going to look from now on. Dropping my bag, I headed for the kitchen. On my way, I instinctively flicked on the switch for the answering machine. Travis, please don't do anything irrational. I'm on my way home so we can talk. Please just hold off until I get there, her voice pleaded, tinged with distress. I didn't consider smashing the answering machine as crazy. In fact, I saw it as fitting punishment for delivering a message I didn't want to hear in a voice I didn't want to hear it from. So, I destroyed it. Perhaps it was a tad irrational, but at least it's cheaper than repairing walls. Don't do anything crazy, she said. I wondered what she meant by that. Well, crazy or not, tired or not, there would be no sleep for me tonight. I ventured into the garage and gathered all the luggage she had accumulated over the years. Selecting a large matching black case and a garment bag, I set them aside and carried the rest up to the bedroom. Sorting through her closet, I grabbed armfuls of clothes and stuffed them into the bags. There were items in those drawers I hadn't seen in years, yet she had always accused me of being a pack rat. But who knows, maybe she had been wearing them for someone else. After clearing out the dresser, I retrieved a couple of boxes for her shoes. Moving everything to the front room near the door, I paused for a moment with a bottle of water, contemplating my next move. The idea of having a small cookout with hot dogs and marshmallows briefly crossed my mind, but I quickly dismissed it. Dealing with the local law enforcement and her would be more trouble than it was worth. Instead, I decided to head to the hardware store on a whim. I purchased new locks and hurried home to install them. Upon returning, I realized the pile in the front room couldn't stay there. Following the same line of thinking as before, I loaded everything into my car and drove towards her mom's house. I maneuvered my car into their driveway, stepped out, and began unloading everything next to the garage. I didn't want to burden Henry too much, especially knowing he wouldn't be receiving any help from his wife or daughter. As the third case thudded onto the ground, my dear mother-in-law emerged. "Hello, Travis. What's all this?" she inquired, her curiosity evident. Well, I figured when Grace arrives, she might need some clothes. I was going to let her bring them herself, but I couldn't bear to see them cluttering up the front room any longer, I explained. When is Grace getting here? I thought she was still out of town. And why would she need her clothes here? Joyce probed further, her tone tinged with concern. Well, Joyce, I'm not certain where she plans on residing, but I assume she might stay with you until she figures things out. For all I know, she may have already arranged to move in with the gentleman she's been seeing. But of course, I can't say for certain, which is precisely why I brought her things here, I stated, observing her expression paling. What in the world are you insinuating? How can you accuse my daughter of such a thing? She had to stay there for work purposes. I assure you, she's not cheating on you, Joyce retorted, her agitation bordering on hysteria. Well, the last time I caught sight of the happy couple, they were enjoying their 2-month anniversary at a nightclub close to their hotel. You see, after practically pleading with her to return home for our anniversary, and her tearfully expressing regret that she couldn't make it, I decided to hop on a plane. Upon my arrival, I found them already dining together. It seemed quite romantic, so I opted not to interrupt their meal. Plus, witnessing them sharing a kiss over the table made me feel like I needed a moment to compose myself. Later, as they strolled past me in the lobby, I contemplated addressing them, but her tender gaze and whispered words to him dissuaded me from intruding on their moment. Feeling suffocated, I stepped outside to catch my breath, just in time to witness them heading towards a nearby nightclub. While seated at a table nearby, I overheard her expressing reluctance to leave him on their 2-month anniversary, only to be corrected by him, stating it should be their 3rd month, and that she shouldn't have played hard to get when he asked her out after the first week they met. It dawned on me that if I wanted to secure a flight out of there, I would have to interject in their celebration. I tried to be discreet, but I felt compelled to offer them a little gift. So I took my first drink in 10 years, ever since you warned Grace that my drinking would lead to the demise of our marriage, and presented her with my wedding ring, and him with a broken nose. I thought it was rather considerate of me to give each of them something, although I must admit I quite preferred his gift. Now, after she returns home, delivers yet another Oscar-worthy performance, and I show her the door, I'm sure she'll be making a prolonged visit here, I concluded, leaving her speechless. None of this is true. How could you say such things about your wife of 11 years? She said, sounding utterly shocked. Don't ever call that woman my wife again. Maybe you feel obligated to stand by her because she's your daughter, but I don't. I witnessed it all with my own eyes. For the past 2 months, I've been living in a sexless, solitary existence, while she's been out gallivanting with this jerk from the moment he joined that company. That's quite the daughter you've raised. She has looked me in the eye for 3 months straight and, seemingly without an ounce of guilt, lied to me every single day. If you think I'm welcoming her back into my home, you're even more deluded than she is. Regardless, what you choose to believe is your problem. As for me, I'm cutting my losses. She seems quite infatuated with that guy. Well, he can have her. She won't have to worry about sneaking around to keep it a secret anymore. After she's finished attempting to lie her way out of this mess, I'll be sending her over here. You can see for yourself who's telling the truth, I declared, dropping the last box on the ground. Now I need to head back home. She didn't specify when she'll be arriving, and I've already changed the locks. Wouldn't want her to be inconvenienced by standing outside, would we? I'm going straight in to call her and inform her of what you've done. Once she's through with you, you'll regret the day you were born, she retorted angrily, stomping into the house. It's a little too late for that. If she answers, tell her whatever you want, including that I'll be eagerly awaiting to hear how she intends to talk her way out of this, I replied, getting into my car. I anticipated a call after Joyce's threat to reach out to Grace, but it never came. After aimlessly wandering around the house for a couple of hours, I ventured out to the little corner of our garage that I had converted into a workspace. I puttered around, accomplishing nothing until I heard the doorbell ring. After hastily dusting off my clothes, I made my way to the door. Upon opening it, I stepped back without uttering a word, allowing Grace to enter. You must have been in the garage. I tried knocking, she remarked as I closed the door and trailed after her. Yeah, I was tidying up a few things, I replied. From the sounds of it, you've been doing a lot of tidying. My mother called me a while ago. It seems like you've pretty much made up your mind about what to do with me, she said. You didn't leave me with many options. Did you really think I'd be okay with you having a boyfriend? I questioned. I suppose I wasn't doing a lot of thinking. Not with my head, anyway, she admitted. Too bad, because that's all I've been doing. You see, I haven't had anyone around to distract me from things. You know, someone to go to dinner with, hit up a club, or simply sit in the dark, whispering and kissing. Instead, what I've got is a woman who can look me straight in the eye and lie to me. She can share my home, my meals, and my life, only to turn around and be intimately involved with someone else. So yes, I think I've pretty much made up my mind, I stated. Doesn't paint a very flattering picture, does it? Are you really going to throw away 11 years together? She queried. I don't recall being asked, and I didn't give up anything. You had me believing everything was fine and dandy. Did I miss something? Did you ever ask me, Travis, do you mind if I start a relationship with someone else? You'd think I'd remember something like that. But it doesn't really matter anymore, does it? Now you and what's his name can go about your business without worrying about me. No more hassles like figuring out which anniversary to spend with whom. Hey, you two can even carpool to work. That'll save you guys loads of time, I said, walking over to a chair. You don't have to add all the sarcasm. I think I understand your point, Grace said. Do you really, Grace? Because I don't think you do. To you, it was just cheating. Heck, you probably found a way to justify it. Maybe you even thought it was my fault. Was it, Grace? Is it my fault you slept with that guy? I asked. No, I didn't blame you for it. It just happened, she admitted, dropping her head. Bullshit. Sleeping with someone for 3 months, other than your husband of 11 years, isn't something that just happens. It's something you work on. Then you work to hide it so you can keep doing it. And let me tell you, baby, you're damn good at your job. I fell for it all, hook, line, and sinker. I don't know how you two found the time to have sex. You must have been laughing your asses off at what a fool you made out of me. And that crying scene on the phone the other night. Holy shit, you really need to consider a career change. That performance would have beaten out the last 3 Academy Award winners, hands down, I said. We never once laughed at you. One time he tried to put you down, and I wouldn't speak to him for a week. And the crying wasn't a performance. I was filled with guilt, crying genuinely. There you were, practically begging me to come home, but I had already made a promise to stay, and I figured that after 11 years, you wouldn't really mind me missing this one, she said, looking away again. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you sticking up for me. And you didn't sleep with him for a whole week. Wow. And I guess I wasn't even supposed to think about the little stunt you pulled 3 years ago when I was doing something important, and you went into such hysterics that I almost lost my job to come home to you. I am sorry for making you feel guilty, though, but I noticed you were over it by the time I saw the two of you at dinner. The little intimacies the two of you were showing one another made it pretty clear that you were where you wanted to be with the one you wanted to be with. I saw you walking across the lobby. I saw the way you were looking at him. Don't stand there and try telling me it doesn't mean anything to you. I saw you look at him, Grace. Sorry to say, it's been a long time since I've seen that look, I said. But I don't love him, she said, looking up at me. Well, now that you can spend more time with him, maybe that will change. Maybe the two of you can get a place together. Think of the fun we had when we were first starting out. It'll be a whole new adventure for you, I said. I guess I should have put that differently. What I meant to say was that I love you, she said. I was pretty proud of myself. Just the one short, little uncontrollable outburst of laughter, and I stopped. I'm not really sure where that came from, but you sure as hell do not love me. If this is what you do to people you love, please God, don't let me get on your bad side. How can you sit there and think that after 11 years I don't love you, she said. Okay, Grace, I see you're into questions too, so here's one for you. Knowing yourself as well as you do, you know how you would react to certain situations. Taking it from there, how do you think you would have reacted if you had found out I had slept with another woman just once? Nothing long-term, just the one time. I asked. I probably would have thrown you out of the house and already had the divorce papers drawn up, she whispered. Thanks for being honest. That's pretty much what I thought you would have done too. I kind of threw in you tossing something at me, but who knows, I said. I probably would have, she said with a weak smile. Okay, now suppose that you found out that every day, for as near as I can figure, 3 months, every bit of time I spent with you, and it was damn little, meant nothing to me. All I did was go through the motions and make you think that everything between us was great, and then go to work, meet up with my lover, and spend the entire day with her. So does this give you the impression that I love you? After close to 13 years, give me some credit, Grace. Besides, like I said, now you two should be able to get closer. You know, without all the sneaking around, I said matter-of-factly. You are making it sound like you don't even care. The time I spent with you meant a lot to me. I was not just going through motions. I enjoy being with you, she said. When was the last time we had fun in bed, Grace? When was the last time you came up and started one of our 5-minute kisses? You could answer a question without having to think about who you were talking to. When was the last time you were my wife, Grace? Don't stand there declaring your love for me after what I saw and heard. I may have been born at night, but it wasn't last night. Jesus, you were talking about him to that old bag Viola the second he walked into the office. Then you two sit there and talk about getting the old bag a gift for getting you together. It sounds to me like you just found your next matron of honor. All you need is his best friend, and you guys are set, I said, leaning back in the chair. So you are just like me after all. Should I be expecting the server at my door? She asked. First, you'll have to tell me where you are planning to be, but then no way, not a chance. You will not see some process person at your door handing you your divorce papers. I reserve that right for myself. I was there when we started. I'll be the one seeing that the last I is dotted and the last T is crossed. You know me, if I didn't do it, it isn't right. I trusted one person completely, Grace, and now you know, after all these years, why I never trusted the important things to anyone but me. Somehow, the I told you so thing doesn't work so well when you have to say it to yourself, I said. It sounds like you spent a lot of time watching and listening to us. Why did you wait so long to break in on us? Were you getting off watching? She asked, her voice tinged with venom. When I saw the two of you kiss over that table in the restaurant, it kind of took the wind out of me. Then, when the two of you were strolling across the lobby, I was too shocked at the way you were looking at him. When I got my bearings, I kind of went into overload and needed some air badly. As I was standing out in front of the hotel, the two of you pushed your way out of the door together and started for a club my cabbie had recommended when I told him I was here for my anniversary, aiming for something quiet and intimate. I got there a little after the two of you, but there you have me. I'm not really sure what more I thought I needed. I had intended to just walk up and beat the shit out of the guy. Instead, I found a table next to yours and ordered a drink. I listened to you two for as long as I could, and when you toasted him to a long and happy life together, I had had all I could stomach. I had to almost pull my finger off to get that damn ring off, but that drink burned my guts so bad I didn't really notice. Sometime you'll have to tell, what's his name, how close he came. When that asshole looked up at me like he was wondering what my problem was, I came that close to grabbing that windpipe and giving a quick twist. After a second of thought, though, I knew you weren't worth the risk of spending the rest of my life in jail. You had made your choice when we talked earlier on the phone, and I decided that was fine by me. I have to admit I was pretty satisfied when I felt his nose crunch, but with your two combined incomes, he should be able to fix any permanent damage, I said. So that's it. Case closed, get rid of Grace, and move on. You show up, see me with another man, don't break us up, but step in and break his nose when you don't want to watch anymore. What is that supposed to show me? She asked, her hands on her hips. I guess I didn't know I needed to show you anything. What I did for me, not you. Why would I fight for someone like you? Someone that respected me so little that she thought treating me like that was something that I'd tolerate or excuse. When I gave you that ring, I thought I was making myself pretty clear. I'm done with you. I'm not putting any more energy into something that now means so little to both of us. There's no way I'm going to forget and forgive, and I can tell from the way you acted before, and now that I haven't been very high on your list of important people. So yeah, it's get rid of Grace and move on. I don't presume to know how you thought this was going to end, but you messed up the bed. Now you sleep in it, I said, looking her square in the eye. So that's it. You just throw me out and keep everything. Somehow that seems like a poor deal after 11 years, she said. It's always about a deal, isn't it? Okay, here's the deal. You want the house. You pay for the house. Me, I want the house. I like it here. With all the extra room, I can finally make it into something I want. I just assumed you and Asphalt had a place lined up, I said. His name is Marcus, she said. I don't care what his name is. Does he or does he not have a place to live? I said, frustration evident in my tone. Well, of course he does, she replied. Well, there you go, problem solved, I retorted. I waited for her to say something, and then it dawned on me. So, you don't think his wife will go for the arrangement, I guess, I said, observing her reaction. What, did you check up on him? How did you know he was married? She asked, sounding surprised. Jesus, this isn't a joke. You really think I'm that dumb? Why else would you be here, Grace? So which is it? Is he not willing to get a divorce for you, or are you getting cold feet? I hope you weren't really thinking of trying to come back here with me, I said, my patience wearing thin. I had given it some thought. I thought maybe after 11 years. I cut her off. Think again. There is no us. That was your call. Here's to the best 2 months ever, and many more to come. Do you recall that line? It's like I told you earlier when I gave you that ring. That was it. Don't give me this after 11 years crap. Those 11 years meant nothing to you before, and they mean nothing to me now. So I'll take those 11 years and raise you a set of papers as soon as I can have them drawn up. The offer on the house stands as it is. If you don't want the house, feel free to come back and take what you want. Most of it will be going to the Salvation Army as soon as I can get replacements on the way anyway, I said firmly. So you'll just move on without a second thought. Divorce me and forget about me. Is that all there is to it? She asked, her voice laced with hurt. You're not really trying to make me feel sorry for you, are you? Of course, I'm not ever going to forget about someone I spent so much of my life with, but as far as remembering goes, it's going to take a long time to get the sight of the two of you together out of my mind. The thought of you sleeping in my bed after being with that piece of shit makes my stomach turn. Waking up and getting that cheery greeting and a little sunshine blown up my ass day after day. There is nothing left for you here. I won't have someone I can't trust living under the same roof with me, and I will never trust you again. So what will it be? Do you want the house? I asked, my tone firm. No, I don't want the house. Give me a few days to find a place, and I'll probably take a lot of the furniture, she said, pulling her hand out of her pocket. What do you want me to do with this? She said, holding my ring out to me. Whatever you want. Hey, I know, use it for one of those toe rings. It should fit over your big toe. That's the way you were treating it anyway. You might as well get some use out of it, I said, a hint of bitterness in my voice. Fine, you know what? I could use a little extra cash. Maybe I'll pawn it, she said. Wow, you won't get much. They buy that stuff by weight, and you probably won't get $30. You couldn't buy a real solid gold toe ring for $30, but hey, that's just my opinion. It's your ring, do what you want with it, I said, a touch of sarcasm in my tone. I'll call you in a few days about the furniture. Did you get all of my things out of the closet? She asked, turning for the door. Well, I got everything, but I was a little pissed at the time and did a pretty poor job of packing. I hope you have a few clean, unwrinkled things left from your trip, I said, trying to keep my tone casual. Mind if I take a look? She asked. Not at all, you know the way, I said, watching her give me a little scowl. I sat there and waited. I heard her go into the bedroom, then the closet, and finally the bathroom. After a few minutes, she came down, stuffing a few cosmetics into a flowered zip-up bag. You were pretty thorough, only missed a few things. Might have to give you a call when I'm ready to move, she said with a fake smile. Hey, as long as it's no closer to me, I'll be glad to lend a hand, I said, sporting the same smile and getting up to open the door for her. So, you want me to just walk away? You don't have anything left to say, she said. I stood there thinking for a second, and I actually did think of something. Would it be too much for me to ask you to run? I said, keeping a straight face. Kiss my ass, you asshole, she said as she turned and walked out the door. I wouldn't kiss that thing. I don't even know where it's been, I said, shutting the door. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon. The second story. The sound of a lawnmower and edger, both buzzing away simultaneously, rudely shattered my Saturday morning sleep-in. A groan from the other side of the bed suggested I wasn't the only one being disturbed. Charlotte sat up, stretching and yawning in one motion. Sorry, Michael, I totally forgot. The boys wanted to get an early start on the yard work so everything would be ready for this afternoon. With that, she headed to the bathroom, tossing her dirty blonde hair to untangle the knots from sleeping on it. Her figure looked as good as it had 20 years ago. Today was my birthday, which meant it was time for the traditional barbecue with family, friends, and neighbors. It was always a bit extravagant for a birthday party, requiring us to borrow extra grills and smokers to handle everything. Despite it being my special day, I often found myself doing most of the cooking. I wasn't particularly skilled at it, but it got the job done. The best part was always having a cold beer in my left hand as I worked the meat with my right. Equals equals equals. Do you want your birthday present now, or will you wait until tonight? Charlotte asked me affectionately. Let's get all the presents tonight, dear. Now I'm going to go downstairs and help the boys. Thomas, 18 and gearing up for Texas A&M in 2 months, and Tyler, a year younger with a scholarship lined up for Auburn, were proving themselves as good sons. I credited Charlotte for raising them right. The only direct contributions I made were a comfortable house and instilling a solid work ethic. Regret lingered for not being a more involved father. We spent a couple of hours sprucing up the yard and patio before firing up the grills. I made sure the ribs went on the smokers first. Hamburgers, hot dogs, and steaks could wait, but ribs needed their own attention. Thomas got the smokers going while Tyler handled the dry rub. At this rate, I could almost sit back and let them handle everything this year. Charlotte arrived just as we wrapped up the prep work. Her 2 sisters were coming over to assist with the extras. We had over 50 people to feed today, and it was amusing how friends tended to show up when there was free food involved. At 40 years old, I still felt as youthful as ever, and next month, Charlotte and I would mark our 20th wedding anniversary. Our marriage had been solid. Though our closeness had mellowed over the years, it remained just as precious. However, things had shifted about a year ago, coinciding with Charlotte starting work. The prospect of an empty nest had nudged her out of the house. As long as she was happy, I was content. While we weren't in need of the extra income, she craved social interaction. After the boys and I finished showering, I put on a new shirt my mother had dropped off earlier in the week. It wasn't really my style, more like something a Hawaiian pimp would wear. Charlotte wisely suggested I wear an apron, and of course, I had a good one that read, "Don't kiss the cook." Soon our guests began to arrive, bringing dishes, presents, and drinks. The weather was perfect, promising a beautiful day ahead. Charlotte appeared stunning, as always, and effortlessly assumed her role as the perfect hostess. Despite approaching 40, she could easily pass for 30, maintaining both her figure and her youthful appearance. I eagerly anticipated some exotic weekends and vacations once the boys were grown and gone. As Charlotte gracefully moved among the tables, ensuring everything was in order, I couldn't help but admire her. She epitomized the ideal wife and mother. What more could a man ask for? Finally, the hungry crowd descended, and plates of food swiftly appeared and disappeared across the yard. Most guests had brought their own lawn furniture, simplifying things. Beer was chilling in one wash tub, sodas in another. I knew the cake was safely waiting in the kitchen, biding its time for its moment in the spotlight. I had no idea where he came from, and I certainly didn't recognize him. He stood tall in a dark blue jacket, lingering at the edge of the party area before leaning in to speak with one of our neighbors. She pointed towards Charlotte, and he thanked her before making his way towards us. Charlotte noticed his approach, looking somewhat uneasy. I remained silent as he passed by me. "Charlotte Harrison?" he inquired. My wife nodded. "Yes." He handed her an envelope pulled from inside his jacket. "Charlotte Harrison, you are served." With that, he turned and left as quietly as he had arrived. By this point, everyone at the party was watching. Charlotte stood there, unmoving, her face betraying no emotion. She glanced at me before slowly retreating back into the house. I watched in silence as the guests, once chattering, now murmured and whispered in hushed tones. In an attempt to break the tension, I called out, "Does anybody want more ribs? Come and get them." Thomas and Tyler came over to my side. "What's going on, Dad?" Tyler asked discreetly. All I could do was shrug. Thomas made a move to go inside, but I stopped him with a shake of my head. "Why don't you guys check if we need more beer or drinks?" As conversation in the yard began to normalize, I felt some relief. After 10 minutes, I decided it was time to talk to my wife, but I didn't get the chance. "Dad, Mom's taking the Mustang," Tyler said, nodding towards the front of the house. My black Mustang convertible sped down the street, faster than usual. The backyard fell silent as everyone watched her drive away. Charlotte typically drove the minivan, but it was blocked in. The Mustang was convenient. There were many unanswered questions, but I figured they would have to wait until my wife returned home. Things took a turn for the worse after that. Charlotte's sister, Amelia, brought out the cake, and I made a half-hearted attempt to appear happy. Without Charlotte, there seemed to be a shadow over everything. Friends and neighbors left first. Family lingered a bit longer, but eventually, there was nothing left to tidy up or wash. Surprisingly, Charlotte's sudden departure was not discussed. Everyone made a conscious effort to avoid the topic. I was left alone with my two sons, and the house was quiet. They both looked to me for some kind of explanation or sign. I had none to offer. I sat on the sofa alone as they went to bed, and I was still there in the morning. Thomas and Tyler were up early, returning the grills and other items borrowed from neighbors. The scent of fresh coffee drew me off the couch. Charlotte had it returned. Whatever was in that envelope must have been pretty important. I tried calling her cell phone several times, but it was turned off. Of course, I spent half the night awake trying to figure out what was going on. The boys wrapped up tidying everything away and left, easily sensing my need for solitude. A lengthy, steamy shower offered some relief, though it was fleeting. There wasn't much I could occupy myself with on a Sunday. Tomorrow, I'd reach out to see if the police could be of any assistance. I didn't have any direct connections to cops or detectives, but I did have a few acquaintances in the courthouse. Perhaps they could offer some aid. We managed our finances with one credit card and one debit card. The debit card handled day-to-day expenses, while the credit card was reserved for larger purchases, both always paid off promptly. If Charlotte were in trouble, those cards would be her lifeline. Credit card transactions usually took a couple of days to show up in the bank account, but debit charges appeared within hours. I decided to check the credit card activity first, but found nothing. The debit card, however, told a different story. Approximately 2 hours after Charlotte left, she purchased gas at the Pennsylvania and Ohio state line. 2 hours later, she made another purchase in Illinois, and the last transaction was an ATM withdrawal in Cedar Rapids for $300. It dawned on me, amidst my third cup of coffee, that she wasn't planning to return. This wasn't just a spontaneous getaway, she was fleeing. I loved my wife and didn't want to harm her, but I also couldn't condone her actions. Even though it was Sunday, I managed to cancel both cards within 10 minutes. An hour later, I reported my Mustang stolen to the police department. I omitted the fact that my wife had taken it. Instead, I mentioned a gas card left in the car, which had been used in 3 states heading west. I felt uneasy about deceiving the police, but it seemed the only way to garner any attention. They weren't particularly interested in probing the situation, more eager to dismiss me. I quickly checked the house and noticed only her purse and a small overnight bag were missing. What she packed in it remained a mystery to me. For hours, I debated what to do with her cell phone. Canceling the cards, I hoped it would prompt her to call home and explain. Lunch was forgotten in the midst of my thoughts. By dinner time, my sons arrived with pizzas. Although there was plenty of food from the day before, the hot slices were a welcome treat. We finally discussed what had happened. I briefed them on what I knew, and they offered their support. That night, I slept in my bed, but Charlotte never called. Thomas and Tyler were working for a local tree trimming company over the summer. It was tough work, but they embraced the macho image it brought. I waved to them from the porch as their Jeep disappeared down the street. After finishing my coffee, I wandered back into the empty house, still trying to figure out what went wrong. I called work and took a week's vacation. While I was getting a bit tired of the job, it paid well. I delivered gravel for a local rock quarry. It was hot and dirty, but didn't require much decision-making. I just picked up the loads, dropped them off, and collected my paycheck. After Charlotte joined Prescott Casualty Company, we attended several company events together. They hosted parties and picnics, allowing me to meet some of her colleagues. However, over the last 6 months, we stopped going to these gatherings, and Charlotte never mentioned them. They used to be important to her, but suddenly they weren't. While I'm not great at remembering people I meet, I do recall Noor and Layla Diaz. Noor was a carpenter, and Layla worked in the same office as Charlotte. I felt it was time to call Prescott Casualty. Layla, it's Michael Connor. Do you have a moment to talk? Hi, Michael. I'm quite busy right now. Is it urgent? Charlotte didn't come to work today, did she? No, we weren't expecting her to. Oh, really? Why's that? There was a lengthy silence on the other end. It was clear Layla was uncomfortable talking to me. Michael, I don't think I should discuss this with you. You should talk to your wife. I'd love to, but I have no idea where she is. Another pause. Michael, I'm sorry, but I have a lot of work. I have to go. With that, she hung up. Suddenly, I had a sinking feeling that something was happening at Prescott Casualty that Charlotte didn't want me to know about. It explained why we stopped attending company functions. She feared someone might inadvertently reveal something or lead me to suspect she was up to something. I grabbed a chilled beer and stepped out onto the porch, seeking some solitude for reflection. Over the past few months, there were a few things I'd noticed about Charlotte, but I hadn't dwelled on them much. She started working overtime a few nights each week. It wasn't alarming, but it had become a regular occurrence. Charlotte became tight-lipped about her work at home, and we began avoiding socializing with her colleagues. However, her appearance and attire remained unchanged. She hadn't bought new clothes or lingerie, and there were no suspicious calls or emails that I could recall. I trusted my wife completely, so I didn't give these things much thought. She wasn't acting differently at home, nor was there a lack of romance between us. Still, it was time to make a few calls. Damian Foster, an old high school buddy who worked at the courthouse, was my first call. I wasn't sure about his job, but I knew it involved computers. I explained the situation to him and arranged to meet at the glass door after his work. Before leaving home, I also called Ronwell Home Builders and learned that Noor Diaz was working nearby on an apartment complex. I planned to see him after lunch. Usually, I could finish a Taco Bell burrito, but today I only managed half of it. I was eager to talk to Noor. When I arrived, the crew was still on their lunch break. Noor greeted me with a smile, much friendlier than Layla had been. Michael, good to see you. I suppose you're here to discuss Charlotte. Noor, I spoke with Layla this morning, and she refused to give me any details. You need to tell me straight, no nonsense. I respected Noor because he was a blue-collar guy like me, but I knew I'd get angry if he tried to deceive me. Michael, I usually ignore Layla when she starts gossiping about work, but I do know this much. Charlotte has been involved with a married man in the office for almost 6 months now. They tried to keep it quiet, but it spread quickly. Layla stopped talking to Charlotte when she found out, and so did many others. We missed you at company events, but we assumed Charlotte was keeping you away on purpose. That's the gist of it. I'm sorry I can't offer more. Do you know who the guy is? No, I don't pay attention like I should. I can find out for you. Don't worry about it, Noor. I'll handle it. That summed up the situation for me. There was no misunderstanding. Just a clueless husband who didn't know what was happening in his own home. 10 minutes later, I canceled Charlotte's cell phone service. Now, she couldn't call home. As I headed back home, my phone rang. The police in Cedar Rapids had found the Mustang parked in the bus station depot parking lot. It had been towed to an impound lot, and I could retrieve it after paying a $300 fee. I stopped by the police station and got a hard copy of the report. The only conclusion was that Charlotte had abandoned the car and switched to the bus. I couldn't find out where she went, but I assumed it was westerly. I didn't even know she knew anyone in that area. I swung by the bank, closed all our joint accounts, and opened new ones solely in my name. Then I updated the beneficiary on my insurance policies to the boys. By the time Damien showed up at the glass door, I'd had one too many drinks. Michael, there was a divorce hearing today, and Charlotte was summoned to testify. She didn't show naturally. Hannah Smith was divorcing her husband, Steve, citing adultery. Mrs. Smith wanted Charlotte to confirm she was the woman her husband cheated with. So, without Charlotte's testimony, the divorce didn't go through. Nope went exactly as planned. Mrs. Smith had enough evidence, photos, videos, recorded calls, to make her case without Charlotte. I think she just wanted to humiliate her. Seems like she succeeded. What's Charlotte's situation now? Doesn't seem like anyone cares anymore. There's nothing new she could add, and it's all irrelevant now. Steve basically confessed after seeing the evidence, and the judge granted the divorce on the spot. It'll be final in 6 months. He's getting hit hard with child support and alimony. He has kids. Yeah, 3, all under 10. He's in for a long ride with that. Damien and I chatted for a while, until he excused himself to head home to his family. I expressed my gratitude for his help and requested some coffee from the barkeep. I almost reached for one of the red pickled eggs in the jar on the counter, but then I remembered the leftovers from the party. I indulged a bit more than I should have, but still managed to make it home without causing any accidents. It was a foolish move given the circumstances. While I took a shower, I wrapped 6 ribs in tin foil and put them in the oven. When I returned to the kitchen, all that remained were bones. Thomas and Tyler arrived home and made a beeline for the pork. They teased me a bit and then cooked another batch. Thomas was thrilled about the Mustang situation. After a 20-minute discussion, I relented and allowed both boys to take a bus to Cedar Rapids and drive the car home. I gave them $600 to cover expenses. Tyler drafted a note on the computer, granting them permission to pick up and drive the car home. He seemed competent, so I kept quiet and signed it. The next morning, we all had breakfast at IOPUB, and I dropped them off at the bus station. I chuckled a bit as they boarded, knowing they had no idea what 2 days on a Greyhound would be like. It was a valuable life lesson. I called the Cedar Rapids Police Department to let them know to expect Thomas and Tyler. They assured me there would be no issues. There was one more thing I needed to take care of. It didn't take long for Layla to point out where Steve Smith's office was. As soon as she spotted me, she reached for her phone, but it was too late. I didn't bother with introductions. I just started laying into him, pounding on him about the head and shoulders. He weakly tried to defend himself, but ended up on the floor behind his desk. I delivered a few kicks to his groin before security guards pulled me away. He was knocked out, and I felt a surge of relief. Things escalated quickly after that. Before I knew it, I was at the police station, facing a judge and being escorted to county jail. There was no trial, just a quick judgment. I got 60 days, and I couldn't care less. As soon as I could, I called the guys to fill them in. I could swear I heard Tyler laughing on the other end. The house would be fine sitting empty for a while. Reality wasn't quite like the TV dramas. It wasn't a breeze, but I didn't feel like my life was in danger or that I'd be attacked at any moment. Mostly, it was a bunch of unpleasant characters who couldn't get along and some rowdy kids. The kids and the troublemakers didn't mix much. Private rooms were out of the question. I ended up sharing a cell with a 300-pound guy named Jocko, who beat up his wife when he caught her with his brother. I didn't ask what happened to the brother. Jocko and I got along fine. Naturally, I took the top bunk. The food in the dining hall was too heavy on carbs for my taste, but Jocko was more than happy to take what I didn't want. Besides his propensity for farting more than any other man in the state, he was a good cellmate. 3 days later, Tyler and Thomas came to visit me. The car recovery went smoothly, but they dreaded taking any bus trips soon. They had no news about Steve or their mother. They brought me 2 cartons of cigarettes, even though I don't smoke. Thomas believed they'd be useful for trading, influenced by too many movies. Jocko, however, was thrilled to receive them. He claimed he needed to smoke to keep his weight down. Leaving the boys alone in the house wasn't a concern for me or apparently anyone else. Thomas had already left for school the week before I got out of jail, taking the minivan and leaving the Jeep for Tyler. Tyler and I celebrated my return by going to Red Lobster. He was eager to start his last year of high school, even though he'd have to do it without me. I had other plans. The next morning, Layla couldn't believe her eyes when I walked past her desk. I winked at her and went straight into Steve's office again. 3 hours later, I was back on the bus to the county jail, this time for 6 months. Tyler found it amusing and immediately called his brother at College Station. Jocko welcomed me back with open arms. Phew. I did a better job on Steve this time. I think I actually broke something. Of course, there was no feedback, so I can't be sure. I got fired from my job, which was no surprise. Fortunately, there was enough money stashed away to cover the house payments and living expenses. Tyler handled everything without any issues. All my family members, including Tyler, regularly visited me during my time in jail. Tyler made sure I had cigarettes for Jocko, who often dropped by too. Charlotte's sisters also came to offer their sympathy. Despite all this, no one had heard from Charlotte. We even had a family Thanksgiving and Christmas celebration in jail. With a month left before my release, Jocko left unexpectedly. His wife and brother had moved to Florida, leaving him unsure of his next steps. Tyler offered him a place to stay until he got settled, even offering him a job at the tree trimming company. But Jocko decided to move south for warmer weather, perhaps to Florida. The night before Jocko left, Steve Smith claimed he was attacked by an ape in a downtown alley. I found it amusing, given I had a solid alibi. After my release, I decided I had enough of Kelsey. He had moved away, and I didn't feel like searching for him. Instead, I took a course to learn how to drive big rigs, which wasn't much different from the dump trucks I was used to. I had to bide my time until Tyler started at Auburn, so I spent it fixing up the house. Although I wanted to sell it, it was in both our names, and I didn't want the hassle. No one had heard anything from Charlotte since she left. Tyler brought the Mustang along to Alabama, claiming it was a real crowd pleaser. Didn't do much for me, but then again, I didn't have his youth and charm. I managed to find a couple interested in buying the house, despite its dubious reputation. Not entirely sure what they meant by a cloud over it, but they scored a good deal, and their lawyer assured them they didn't need Charlotte's signature. I didn't argue, I just wanted to be done with it. With the down payment, I bought a rig with a sleeper and hit the road finally free. Never saw the need to file for divorce from Charlotte. Marriage wasn't something I was keen on doing again. Interesting women weren't exactly abundant in jail, and Jocko put me off the whole idea. Seemed Charlotte felt the same way since no surprise paperwork arrived in the mail. Work came easily. I wasn't desperate for cash, so I could afford to be selective about my loads. Nothing frozen, alive, toxic, or explosive. And definitely no trips north of the Mason-Dixon line in winter. It didn't take long to get the hang of things, and I was actually enjoying my new life. Things got interesting during a delivery of farm equipment in South Dakota. It was June, so weather wasn't an issue. After dropping off the load, I headed south and stopped at the Belly Up Diner, about 5 miles off I-90. It might have been a hole in the wall, but the parking lot was packed with big rigs and cars. The draw? Breakfast, served all day, and it was spectacular in both size and flavor. Most customers were locals, but it seemed a few long-haul drivers had made a special detour to eat there. I just told the waitress to bring me the house favorite and a coffee. 3 large TV screens displayed different programs, each unnoticed by the patrons. The closest screen aired mostly political ads, one of which grabbed my attention. Oliver Grant was vying for a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. He possessed charisma and charm, with his new wife, Charlotte, by his side, dressed impeccably like Jackie Kennedy. Charlotte was my ex, and seeing her with Grant stirred mixed emotions. My thoughts were interrupted as a massive plate of hash was placed in front of me. "There you go, big guy. Need anything else?" Betsy, my server, asked. "Tabasco," I replied. Betsy chuckled as she moved the hot sauce from its hidden spot behind the pepper shaker to my plate. "Are you all set now?" "Almost. Who's the woman next to that smooth talker?" She snorted. "That's Grant's new arm candy. He needed a wife for his campaign. There were rumors about his sexuality, you know." I doused my hash with Tabasco. She seems a bit mature to be arm candy. "Well, I guess when you're in a hurry, you can't be too picky, but she does look good. Older women make better lovers, don't you think?" She did look good. Her once blonde hair was now auburn and expertly styled, her makeup flawless, and her tailored suit fitting her like a glove. I glanced away from the television and noticed my waitress had resumed her duties. The hash was delicious, explaining the full parking lot. My coffee was refilled twice before I finished my meal. The pie looked tempting, but I was too full to indulge. Betsy cleared my empty plate and placed the check in front of me. Is he going to win the election? Not if we can help it. He's got big money backing him from important people in Sioux Falls. Locals want nothing to do with him, but we lack the votes and funds to stop him, she replied. I chuckled as I pulled out my money clip. You seem to know something. Are you sure they got married? Yep, they did it on TV like it was a reality show. No honeymoon though. They're waiting until after he's in office, I said, still smiling as I dropped a 10 on the counter. Before you leave, you better tell me something, Betsy said sternly. I'm not looking for trouble, and I'm not poking my nose where it doesn't belong. But I would appreciate a favor, I replied. What's that? Can I catch a couple hours of sleep out front before I hit the interstate? Sure, no problem, but be cautious of those coke addicts. They sneak up here every now and then. They're dirty, nasty people. I nodded my thanks and still had a smile on my face as I exited. Betsy watched from the window as I climbed into the rig. I was just starting to enjoy some well-deserved sleep when the banging began on the door. I ignored it for a moment, but it persisted. Go away. They said I could park here for a couple of hours. The banging continued, so I reluctantly opened the door. Betsy said I needed to talk to you. Can you spare a few minutes? It was dark and rainy, and all I could see was a tough-looking woman in a poncho. I didn't break any laws. Leave me alone. Just give me 10 minutes, she insisted, determined. Sorry, I'm not interested. Go talk to one of the other guys. I'm not a prostitute, damn it. I need to talk to you about Grant. I'll meet you inside in 10 minutes. That seemed to calm her down. She half smiled and closed the door. Maybe I should have just let her in, even though she was soaked. I checked my watch as I grabbed my rain gear. I'd only gotten 3 hours of sleep. The restaurant was still bustling with a decent crowd, and near the entrance there was a section for rain gear, soon to be swapped for snow gear and boots as the seasons changed. Seated in a booth by the front window, she had 2 cups of coffee in front of her. Her hair was straight and shiny black, with a small white streak on one side. Her complexion suggested an outdoorsy lifestyle, well-tanned and rugged, far from delicate. She was no girl. She looked to be at least 35, perhaps pushing 40, with high cheekbones and no makeup. As I sat down, I extended my hand. Michael Harrison. Mia Richardson, do you want anything to eat? No thanks, I just had the hash special about 3 hours ago. I don't think I'll be eating for a while. She replied with a polite smile. Betsy mentioned that you might have some information about Charlotte Grant. I wanted to talk to you before you left. What's so important about Charlotte Grant? My brother, Lucas, is running against him in the election. I see. This is personal then. Not entirely. Lucas represents the people in the area, the farmers, ranchers, and Native Americans. Grant is aligned with the Sioux Falls businessmen. We're not against business, but we don't believe everyone will get a fair shake if Grant wins. Okay, but I still don't see the connection with his wife. Neither do we. All we know is something doesn't seem right. Our election committee attempted a background check on her and came up empty. His campaign isn't releasing any information about her. This might all be nothing, but we're getting desperate. Betsy thought you might know something. I suppose I shouldn't pursue a career in professional poker if a waitress can read me that easily, I chuckled, leaning back in my chair. She grinned, leaning forward. Ah, there it is. You do have something up your sleeve. Are you going to spill the beans, or do I have to drag it out of you? Finishing my coffee, I couldn't help but find her choice of words amusing. I think I prefer the second option, I said with a grin, motioning to the now empty cup. I surprised myself with that comment. I wasn't usually one for cheekiness or innuendos, but there was something about her demeanor that I found appealing. She exuded confidence and directness, and I got the sense that she always knew what she wanted and how to get it. As Betsy refilled our cups, Mia Richardson fixed her gaze on me. Apologies, that was rude of me. I'll gladly answer any questions, I said, feeling a pang of regret for my earlier remark. Mia covered her mouth, laughing lightly. No worries, Mr. Harrison. I'm not that sensitive, and I actually found your answer quite cute. I shouldn't have phrased my question so bluntly. Good to know the second option is still on the table, I teased. No, it's not, she replied firmly. How do you know Charlotte Grant? She's my wife. We've been married for over 20 years, never got divorced. Haven't seen her in a while, but unless she snuck in a divorce I don't know about, we're still hitched. Mia seemed taken aback, speechless for a moment. What was her maiden name when you married her? After a moment of hesitation, she replied, Oh my gosh, her maiden name was Harrison. She didn't even try to hide it. Wow. Betsy hurried over, and suddenly all eyes in the place were on us. I felt a bit embarrassed by the attention, but Mia seemed thrilled. Mia sprang up and planted a kiss right on Betsy's lips. Then she made her way to the foyer and pulled out her cell phone. Betsy blushed a bit and leaned towards me. What on earth did you say to her? I haven't seen her this excited in 5 years. The smart aleck in me, dormant for so long, started to surface. I glanced up at Betsy and replied, I told her you and I were getting married. She quickly realized it was a joke and rewarded me with a playful punch on the arm. Are you going to let me in on the secret? Nope, I'll let Mia spill the beans. I'm heading back to my truck to see if I can get some work done. Nice meeting you, Betsy. The rain had stopped, but I didn't make it back to the truck. Mia grabbed my arm halfway there. You can't bail yet. You need to talk to Lucas. It won't take long, just a few minutes. I'd rather just forget the whole thing. I regret even mentioning it to Betsy. How long until Lucas gets here? He's meeting us at my place. Do you want to ride with me or follow in your truck? I'll follow you. I felt better not relying on someone else for transportation. Mia's Jeep wagon was at least a decade old, if not older. After a couple of miles on asphalt, we turned onto a worn gravel road leading to an equally worn double-wide trailer. Someone was home, judging by the well-lit surroundings. There was no grass, just more gravel, and not much of that. I tried to avoid the mud, but it was tricky. There were no other cars, so I assumed Lucas was still on his way. Just inside the trailer door, there was a designated space for wet coats and boots, a practical touch given the abundance of outerwear already present. The layout was intriguing, resembling more of a classroom than a typical living room. Instead of end tables, there were desks. Instead of table lamps, computers. And there, staring at me, were 3 teenage boys. Hi guys, this is Michael. He's here to help Uncle Lucas, Mia announced as she headed to the kitchen to make coffee. I gave them a small nod in lieu of a hello, feeling a bit awkward. Scanning the room, I found no sign of a Mr. Richardson. With 2 sons of my own, it was easy to tell these boys were close in age, my guests being 16, 17, and 18. There was no TV or music playing. Instead, all 3 seemed engrossed in either a computer or a book. What struck me as odd was that they didn't seem like typical bookish or nerdy types. Rather, they appeared like normal, active teenagers. Michael, meet my sons. The oldest is Trent, then Tyler, and the youngest is Travis, Mia introduced. They each smiled and nodded in turn. I couldn't help but grin, my amusement evident. I know it's a bit peculiar that we gave them all names starting with T. No, that's not what's amusing. It's just that I have 2 sons named Thomas and Tyler. Quite the coincidence, she chuckled. Tyler, the elder of the 2 boys, spoke first. Where are your sons? His mother shot him a stern look, but he brushed it off. Thomas is at Texas A&M, and Tyler is at Auburn. Her simple answer ignited the room. Suddenly, Trent seemed to come alive, as if energized by the revelation. I'm heading to College Station in August. How long has he been there? What's he studying? Mia reached out to touch his shoulder. Slow down, boy, slow down. I'm sure Mr. Harrison has time to answer all your questions. It turned out Trent had a full football scholarship and was already enrolled in ROTC. Tyler had been accepted to the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis and would be leaving in a year. Mia's husband had served in the National Guard and was killed in the Gulf 5 years ago. She didn't delve into further details, and I didn't press for any. Travis, the youngest of the boys, hadn't yet decided his path, but his mother made sure he kept hitting the books regularly. I wasn't sure why Lucas was delayed, but for the next hour, I engaged in conversation with Mia's sons, covering every topic under the sun. Mia stood aside, observing as I connected with them, much like I would with my own boys. Being around Mia's children reminded me of how much I missed mine. Lucas Pierce eventually arrived with 2 associates. After introductions, Mia put her sons back to work while the adults gathered around the kitchen table. There seemed to be some doubt about my claim to be Charlotte's husband, but it wasn't worth arguing about to me. As I rose to depart, I thanked Charlotte for the coffee and bid the boys farewell. Mia wasn't having any of it. "Michael, sit down," Mia commanded, silencing the others at the table. Taking charge of the conversation as if she were running for office, Mia turned to me. "Michael, do you have a marriage license or some proof that you're married to Charlotte Grant?" It took only moments to retrieve a wedding picture from my wallet. Though she was older now with different hair, it was unmistakably Charlotte. I glanced at one of Lucas's associates who had a laptop in front of him. "Go to the Berks County, Pennsylvania Office of Records. You should be able to access marriage licenses from 1960 to 1990. Just search for my name, Michael William Harrison." Mia brought me another cup of coffee with a small smile, seemingly relieved that I hadn't walked away. Flunky number 1 swiveled the laptop screen towards Lucas. "August 17th, 1979, correct." Lucas brightened a bit. I nodded, taking a sip of my coffee. "Good luck finding any divorce record. As far as I know, and anyone else knows, I'm still married. Feel free to investigate as much as you'd like. It doesn't make a difference to me." The conversation was starting to drag, so I stood up without anyone stopping me. "Mind if I catch some Z's in your driveway before I head out?" "Not at all." Mia walked me to the door. I glanced back to bid farewell to Lucas and his pals, but they were deeply engrossed in whatever politicians do. They each gave a small wave or nod as I left. An hour later, I heard Lucas and his crew leave. I thought I was set for the night when I heard knocking on the door again. Mia slipped into the cab wearing a flannel nightgown, gesturing for silence. We were far enough away from the house that the guys couldn't hear, but I think she just didn't want any conversation. We spent at least an hour together in the sleeper. It was passionate and loving, but a bit uncomfortable. Rig berths are great for sleeping, but that's about it. I did my best under the circumstances. She left as quietly as she came, no words exchanged. As the sun rose, the door creaked open once more, signaling Travis was up and calling me in for breakfast. Thankfully, guys and I share the same taste in food, and Mia knew exactly how to satisfy our cravings. I spent another hour shooting the breeze with the guys, feeling quite at ease. So much so, I mustered the courage to ask Mia if I could have a warm shower before hitting the road. An hour later, I was finally on my way, or so I thought. Before I could hit the interstate, a local sheriff pulled me over. It seemed Mr. Pierce had more to discuss with me. I followed the police car back to the belly up where Lucas awaited me mid-breakfast. He invited me to join him, and as Betsy brought me coffee, she gave me a knowing wink. She must have been closer to Mia than I realized. It appeared Lucas's legal team wanted me to stick around. When I tried to brush it off with the old adage, time is money, he simply laughed and continued eating. It would have been easy to agree to everything and then just take off, but after last night, I figured I might want to stick around a few more days. The party would cover a motel room and meals, but that was about it. It was a good chance for me to get my clothes washed and catch up on bills and banking. Thank goodness for Wi-Fi. I fired off a couple of emails to the boys and paid all the bills. I was just folding my second load out of the dryer when Mia walked in. I've never seen a woman rock jeans like she did. Despite having 3 kids, her body was still flawless. Her untucked blue Oxford shirt was cinched with a silver contro belt, giving her a casual yet stylish look. Her skin had a natural glow, not a sheen of sweat, making her undeniably attractive. "What on earth are you doing, Michael?" she asked, catching me off guard. I shrugged innocently, folding laundry. "You were supposed to be gone. Remember, you said you were leaving this morning." "Plans changed. Your brother asked me to stick around a few more days." "The only reason I came to see you last night was because I thought you'd be gone today. I can't have you hanging around here after," She stumbled over her words, clearly flustered. It seemed she wasn't expecting anything beyond a one-night stand and was unsure how to handle the situation. I couldn't help but find her frustration amusing. After talking to Lucas this morning, I'm seriously considering buying a house and staying here permanently. He made it sound pretty enticing. I know bull when I smell it. What's really going on? I motioned for Mia to sit down on the bench beside the dryers. Your brother insisted I stay a few more days, just until they can sort things out with Grant. I promised to keep my distance from you and the boys until everything's settled. I didn't mean to embarrass you or make you uncomfortable. That's not the issue, Michael. The boys really like you. They were asking when you could come over again. They were a bit disappointed when I told them you were leaving. Tyler even wanted me to ask you to stay a little longer. I'm sorry, I was just being friendly. They reminded me of my own kids, and it was easy to talk to them. I didn't mean to cause any trouble for you. Well, I didn't help matters when I went out to your truck last night. You certainly made things interesting. My playful comment earned me a playful jab in the arm and a smile. Why did you come out to see me? Mia shrugged, looking slightly embarrassed. I'm not sure. It's been 5 years since my husband passed away. 5 years without any comfort or passion. It just seemed like the perfect opportunity, especially since you were supposed to leave today. She was getting a bit feisty with me again. So why didn't you leave? Damn it. I handed her a pile of folded laundry and then took the rest before heading back to my motel room. She hesitated at the door for a moment until I put my finger to my lips, mimicking what she had done the night before. Her coy smile turned into a big grin as she closed the door behind her. Making love to a woman in a proper bed is undeniably easier, but what I truly relished was our time in the shower. Not even running out of hot water could dampen our enthusiasm. Before she departed, she insisted I join her for supper at 6. How could I refuse? I was more than ready. Heck, I'd already had 2 showers today. Dinner at Mia's house soon became a regular affair, and Betsy, Mia's longtime friend, became my greatest source of information. Betsy took delight in recounting their escapades from their younger days and the mischief they caused with boys. Conversations about Mia's husband were somber and revealed a deeper side to her, but it only fueled my desire to know her better. Though I never planned to stay in South Dakota, the longer I was there, the more I felt rooted. By the end of the first week, the boys all had Texas A&M t-shirts and Auburn sweatshirts. Mia even kept one of the Auburn shirts for Travis. It was a bit too big for him anyway. I paid little attention to the political maneuvering. Lucas and his team seemed to handle things fine without me. However, when the press caught wind of Charlotte's mysterious past and began to exploit it, Grant's team struggled to downplay it. The more they tried to deny or ignore it, the worse it became. Grant's approval ratings plummeted rapidly. I stayed out of it until one morning I received an unexpected visit at the motel. The woman standing at my door was tall, with blonde hair cascading straight down her back. I was still in my boxers, but I welcomed her in nonetheless. Her eyes darted away as I pulled on my jeans, but I couldn't help but observe her every move. She wore a dark suit paired with a crisp white shirt and low black heels, clearly a professional. I wanted to take a quick bathroom break and grab some coffee, but instead, I forced myself to sit at the standard issue motel table. I'm Sophia Beth Hayes, an attorney from Levitt's Brothers in Sioux Falls. I assume you're Michael William Harrison, she said. She knew my middle name. This wasn't a good sign. Excuse me for a moment, I said, rising and heading to the bathroom. Though I closed the door, I was pretty sure the noise of my relief was audible. I had intended to hold it in, but I felt like this woman needed a little dose of humility. Less than a minute later, I returned to the table. Was that necessary? She asked. No, but from your tone, I figured we'd be here for a while, I retorted. Sorry, I was just trying to maintain professionalism. You missed. What do you want? I demanded. Our company represents Oliver Grant. We recently discovered that your marriage to Charlotte Harrison was never properly dissolved, and we're hoping to rectify that, she explained. How? I asked. There are statutes available within the state to allow for rapid terminations of marriages in certain circumstances. We feel that we can take advantage of these statutes with your cooperation, she explained. You mean you want me to divorce my wife? I clarified. Yes, she affirmed. Why would I want to do that? I countered. My guest seemed taken aback. At this point, I would welcome the divorce, but on my terms, and I didn't want to reveal that to her. Miss Hayes just sat and looked at me. Miss Hayes, can you please tell me in plain terms why my wife and I are no longer living together? Don't sugarcoat it and be completely honest. If you can do that, I will consider continuing our conversation. She leaned back and undid the top button of her blouse. 3 years ago, your wife had an affair with a coworker. When you found out about it, she ran away because she could no longer face you or your sons. She has not been in contact with any of you since that time. Is that plain enough for you? That's good. In fact, you hit the nail on the head. So what's the problem? I asked. If you've been following the news, you are aware that Charlotte and Mr. Grant got themselves into a little bind. We can't undo what has been done, but we are hoping to alleviate it a little, she explained. By getting her a quickie divorce, I deduced. Right. And tell me again, what do I get out of it? Freedom. Hell, I'm happy with the way things are now. You're going to have to show me how my life will be better, not just the same. What are your desires, Mr. Harrison? Money? How much are we talking about here? Give me something to work with. What are the terms of the divorce you're suggesting? There aren't any. That's why it can be expedited. No money exchanges hands, no assets are divided, no custody disputes. Both of you leave with what you have, owing nothing to each other. It's clean and final. How long does this process take? Less than 90 days. So it'll be finalized before the election. Yes, that's correct, she admitted, downplaying it. Do I have to see my wife? No, in fact, we prefer if you didn't. Do I have to stay here until it's over? My guest sighed. Yes. Okay, I'll agree, but on one condition. You cover my room and board until it's completed. Suddenly, Sophia Beth Hayes smiled. I could tell this was better than she expected. I could have pushed for more, but right now, getting it for free sounded good. I can prepare the documents and have them ready for your signature this afternoon. Would that be acceptable? Perfect. I'll need to consult with my lawyer, but I don't foresee any issues. I didn't actually have a lawyer, but I wanted to discuss it with Lucas first. Your lawyer? Give me your card. I'll call you if there's anything he disagrees with. If you don't hear from me, bring me the papers. Relieved that it was sorted, I realized I needed breakfast. I escorted her to the door, barefoot in jeans and no shirt. As she drove off, I spotted Mia across the parking lot. Before I could signal her over, she sped away. After a quick shave, I got dressed and headed to the belly up. Betsy gave me a disapproving look as she poured my coffee. Do I get a chance to explain? Not to me, Mr. Harrison, but you better have a good story for Mia. The food was hot, but the atmosphere was frosty. I finished as quickly as I could and called Lucas. He was out of town, but we chatted for 20 minutes. He found the whole situation hilarious and advised me to proceed cautiously, but to ensure I got copies of everything. He seemed confident, regardless of the outcome. I asked him to call Mia. He was still chuckling when he hung up. There was a large power wash station located near Interstate 90 where I spent a couple of hours getting my rig steam cleaned, vacuumed, and then hand-waxed. Although it would have been easier to just pay for the service, I found it therapeutic to do it myself. After finishing up, I grabbed lunch at the Cracker Barrel before heading back, hoping to avoid any anger from Betsy. This time, Betsy was parked right by the door to my room. Mia, looking a bit sheepish, got out of the Jeep as I pulled up, clearly having been called by Lucas. She spent the next 2 hours apologizing to me. A sign that guilt can sometimes be a good thing. When Miss Hayes returned with papers for me to sign, she also insisted I accept a check for $10,000. While Grant's campaign continued to struggle, my divorce petition moved swiftly through the legal system. Trent was now at College Station with a friend looking after him. Just before the election, I was officially divorced. Lucas won and vowed to repay me for my assistance, though I didn't feel like I did much. I jokingly told him I'd consider us even if he gave me his sister, earning myself a punch in the arm from Mia. Charlotte didn't fare as well, as she was eventually charged with bigamy after the election. Before anything could happen, she vanished without a trace, something she was skilled at doing. I never got the chance to see or speak to her again. I decided to sell the truck and purchase a house with a small gravel pit near Huron. Mia and I tied the knot at Christmas, with all 5 of my T-boys in attendance. Betsy moved into the double-wide and promised to take good care of it. As the sonogram revealed we were expecting a girl, I began looking for good girl names that start with the letter T. The third story. Despite my lingering suspicions, my love for her remained steadfast. Strange occurrences, unprecedented in our 15 years of marriage, set off alarm bells in my mind. Her style transformed drastically when the new boss assumed control at her office. Suddenly, our domestic life took a turn for the better. She initiated intimacy, a departure from her past behavior. Nighttime texts became routine, as did late meetings after work. Though she offered plausible explanations for each occurrence, my innate jealousy simmered beneath the surface. I instructed the private investigation firm to withhold any findings until their investigation concluded. I hoped against hope that my concerns were merely the product of an overactive imagination. 3 months later, I received a comprehensive dossier that shattered my illusions. Video footage, audio recordings, and photographs confirmed my worst fears. Without hesitation, I instructed Grant, my attorney, to initiate divorce proceedings, demanding the papers be prepared by Wednesday afternoon. Unbeknownst to her, I plotted to confront them during their Thursday night tryst, a surprise in store for the illicit couple. Her audacity astounded me. Polly, of all people, should have known better. She knows me intimately, my intuition, my determination, my unforgiving nature. She witnessed firsthand my ruthlessness in business, how I rose to power and decimated my competitors. Now I command a significant stake in a major trucking company, earning the respect of drivers and teamsters alike through fair treatment. I've lavished Polly with everything, treating her like royalty, a fact she proudly shares with friends and family. Yet, despite her adoration, she jeopardized it all for a fleeting affair. Why? This question haunts me relentlessly, even in these final hours. Why would she throw away everything we built together? Why? It remains my most haunting inquiry. Polly's actions were baffling, given her role as a dedicated mother and wife. Juggling household duties and a full-time job as an executive assistant at a local tech company, she seemed to have it all together. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine she would stray. I'm Henry Cooper, Polly's husband of 15 years, and the father of our 2 preteen daughters who adore their daddy. I fit the archetype of an alpha male, unyielding in demeanor but cherishing my wife as the prize she truly is. Though I possess my father's imposing stature, standing at 6 feet 6 inches and weighing 265 pounds of muscle, I am a gentle giant until provoked. Polly witnessed my protective instincts in action on a couple of occasions when we were out together, and she attracted unwanted attention. With her long legs, slim waist, and angelic face, she naturally draws admiring glances, fueling my simmering jealousy, a flaw I struggle to rein in. Twice in our 15 years together, my jealousy erupted into action. When aggressive men disregarded Polly's refusal and attempted to pull her onto the dance floor, they underestimated my resolve. In those moments, I unleashed my strength, dislocating one man's shoulder and inflicting a concussion on another. I refuse to tolerate disrespect, but my wife knows firsthand the lengths I will go to protect her. Given Polly's familiarity with my protective nature, her decision to engage in an affair raises perplexing questions. Why would she risk everything we've built together, knowing the depths of my loyalty and the extent of my devotion to her? It's a puzzle that continues to haunt me. Date night, Thursday. Every detail was meticulously arranged. Accompanied by one of my fixers, I arrived early at the designated location, ensuring a private setting. Generously tipping the hostess ensured they would be seated away from prying eyes. My brilliant wife believed I was out of town, unaware of the trap I was laying. The audio recordings revealed her willingness to rendezvous with her boss on Thursday night. Despite my seething anger, I listened as he eagerly made plans, oblivious to the impending storm. Equipped with software from the PI agency, I monitored Polly's communications, capturing every damning exchange. Each message fueled my fury, particularly his audacious request to pick her up from our home. My plan was simple: confront them mid-tryst, delivering a performance that would culminate in a stern warning and the shock of divorce papers. Revenge burned within me, drowning out any sympathy for the pain I knew my actions would inflict. Despite my conviction, a nagging doubt lingered. Deep down, I knew Polly loved me and our children. Yet the desire for retribution eclipsed any semblance of compassion. Some may argue for forgiveness, citing our years together and the triviality of a mere affair. But as an immature, jealous alpha male, I refused to let another man defile my wife and maintain his grip on her affections. Though my love for her remained, the betrayal irreparably tainted our connection. With eyes and backup strategically positioned, I awaited the signal indicating the opportune moment. Thursday night arrived, and upon receiving confirmation that the couple had been seated and served, I prepared to confront them. Exiting my car, I entered the restaurant, exchanging pleasantries with the hostess before mustering the composure to execute my plan. As I surveyed the scene, my heart constricted at the sight of the couple. A pang of betrayal mingled with resentment as I beheld my wife, resplendent in a cocktail dress that accentuated her flawless figure, a sight she never bestowed upon me. The inexplicable act fueled my simmering fury, intensifying my determination to unravel the truth. Steeling myself, I approached from the side, their obliviousness fueling my resolve. Polly and her companion remained engrossed in each other, their intimacy a stark contrast to the impending confrontation. With calculated precision, I positioned myself at their table, unnoticed until I pulled a chair from a nearby table, eliciting a reaction that ranged from shock to guilt upon Polly's face. Addressing her with forced joviality, I feigned ignorance of the situation. Polly's attempt to maintain composure, coupled with her introduction of me to her unsuspecting date, only fueled my disdain. The facade of normalcy shattered as the confrontation commenced. She was a master of deception, I had to give her that. Smooth and quick on her feet, she effortlessly veiled her deceit. As my ordered drink arrived, I brushed off Polly's fabrications and raised my glass in a calculated toast. "Let's raise our glasses," I declared with a congenial smile, diverting attention from her attempted subterfuge. "Here's to an intriguing evening and a new chapter." Turning to her boss, Jasper, I engaged him in conversation, feigning ignorance of Polly's transgressions. "Jasper, do you know the secret to Polly and my 15 years of blissful marriage? It's built on a foundation of honesty and trust. Are you married, Jasper?" I queried, already armed with knowledge gleaned from the report. "Yes, happily married for 20 years with 4 wonderful children," Jasper replied, echoing my sentiments on the importance of trust and honesty in marriage. "Marvelous to hear, Jasper," I remarked, turning the spotlight back to Polly. "And Polly, would you say you share the same sentiments?" "Yes, darling, trust and honesty are paramount in our relationship," Polly affirmed confidently, her demeanor betraying no hint of guilt or apprehension. "You see, Jasper, our marriage thrives on mutual trust," I continued, watching their discomfort with a calculated sip from my glass. "As long as Polly remains faithful, she knows she has my unwavering love and support." With each carefully chosen word, I tightened the noose of my game, intent on unraveling their facade. "So, how long have you two been dating?" I inquired nonchalantly, a grin plastered across my face. Polly's irritation flared as she attempted to regain control, her tone indignant. "Honey, this is strictly a business meeting," she retorted, casting me a reproachful glance. "Please refrain from embarrassing me in front of my boss with your baseless jealousy. You know me better than that." Seizing the opportunity, her date chimed in, eager to assert his innocence. "Indeed, Henry, this is purely business," he interjected, adopting a conciliatory tone. I needed to discuss some upcoming changes with Polly. I apologize if there's been any misunderstanding, but rest assured, my intentions are purely professional. Feigning contrition, I offered a sheepish apology. I'm sorry for any misunderstanding, I muttered, adopting a chastened demeanor. So, this is just a business dinner, then. No romantic entanglements. That's correct, Henry, Polly affirmed with forced conviction. Just business meetings, nothing more. Please stop this childish behavior. Bowing my head in false submission, I continued to play my part. I'm sorry, I murmured, struggling to contain my simmering resentment. Seeing you in that alluring dress, accompanied by this charming man, well, you can understand why I might feel a tad insecure. Jasper's reassurance only served to fuel my resolve. Henry, there's no need to apologize, he offered, patting me on the back. If my wife were in your shoes, I'd likely feel the same. As tension dissipated, I signaled to the man observing from the bar. With a thick folder in hand, he approached the table, delivering the damning evidence. As I laid out the incriminating photos, I turned to Polly, my voice heavy with sorrow. Polly, I loved you with all my heart, I whispered, my words laced with pain, but you shattered our marriage with your betrayal. I'll never forget the things I saw and heard. Thank you for destroying everything we had. Polly's gasp echoed through the tense silence as her hands flew to cover her mouth. Jasper, visibly enraged, demanded to know the source of the incriminating photos, but I silenced him with a curt command. As I laid out the damning evidence, I took a moment to scrutinize each photo, punctuating the air with pointed remarks. Polly's tears flowed freely now, her pleas for mercy falling on deaf ears as I endeavored to keep our confrontation discreet, mindful of the prying eyes of neighboring tables. Realizing the gravity of her predicament, Polly grasped for a lifeline. I'm sorry, baby, she implored, desperation tainting her voice. Let's leave and talk about this. It's not what it seems, I promise. I regarded her with a sardonic smirk, deliberately drawing out my response. Not what it seems, I echoed slowly, my tone laced with disbelief. Are you truly prepared to continue this charade? Know this, both of you. I possess hours of incontrovertible evidence, videos, audio recordings, texts, emails, and more. And Polly, after witnessing those videos, I never imagined you capable of such deceit. You hid that side of yourself well, but rest assured, I understand everything now. Gesturing to my associate, I directed him to explain our purpose. With a solemn nod, I presented Polly with the divorce papers, my voice heavy with finality. Polly, our marriage is over, I declared, my words a cold indictment. You and your lover have irreparably damaged my love for you. Tonight, you'll sign these papers, witnessed by our notary friend at the bar. Refuse, and I'll expose every sordid detail to your parents, friends, and worst of all, our children. I've been fair in this divorce, but our daughters will live with me. They deserve better than a cheater for a mother. Jasper, my friend, I began, my voice cool and determined. I suggest you persuade your girlfriend here to sign these papers before I leave. Otherwise, I'll be delivering copies of all the evidence to your wife and your executive team at work. Once I'm done, you'll be out of a job, and Regina will ensure you're ruined financially for a very long time. I'd rather not go down that road, so convince her to sign the divorce papers, and then my soon-to-be ex-wife is all yours. I want nothing to do with that cheating woman ever again. The weight of my words hung heavy in the air, slicing through Polly's defenses. The prospect of losing custody of her daughters added another layer of desperation to her tear-streaked face, while her boyfriend's panic was palpable. Polly's pleas for forgiveness echoed with familiar desperation, empty promises to make amends, explanations, and declarations of love. But I remained unmoved, steeling myself against her emotional onslaught. Dismissing her entreaties, I rose from my seat with finality. I'll be heading to the men's room, I announced firmly. When I return, those papers had better be signed. If not, prepare yourselves for a level of hell you can't even imagine. Left alone with her lover, Polly's sobs intensified, her desperation mounting as she grasped for a lifeline. Jasper, sensing the gravity of the situation, acted swiftly. Polly, just sign them, he urged urgently. But ask him to hold on to them for a week. Use that time to convince him you love him, that you'll do anything to salvage your marriage. Promise therapy, whatever it takes, but make him wait a week. It's the only chance we have. He's serious, and if he has those videos and audios, we're both finished. I don't want a divorce, Polly cried, her voice choked with emotion. Trust me, if you can get him to wait, I'm sure you can save your marriage. Think about the children. You don't want to lose the girls, do you? I implored, knowing the gravity of the situation. Her tears flowed anew, and after a few agonizing minutes, I returned to the table. Well, have you signed them yet? I asked, my tone clipped. With a heavy heart, she met my gaze and spoke in a voice laden with sorrow. Honey, I'll do whatever you want, including signing these papers. But please, can you give me just 1 week? 1 week to be with my girls and talk. After 15 years, please give me that much. I sat in silence, contemplating her plea. Despite the betrayal, I relented. Even though you deserve nothing from me after what you've done, I'll give you that, I conceded begrudgingly. You can come home, but you'll stay in one of the guest bedrooms. I don't want you near my bed during this time. Now sign them so I can leave. As she signed the papers, I gathered them into the folder and stood to depart. Before leaving, I took her hand in mine, watching as she smiled until I removed her wedding rings, dropping mine into her wine glass. Her crestfallen expression brought a small measure of satisfaction, a fleeting acknowledgement of the pain she'd inflicted. Turning to Jasper, I delivered a final warning. Well, asshole, she's your date now. Do what you want with her, I spat, seething with contempt. But remember, you slept with my wife, destroyed our marriage, and endangered a lot, including my children's love for their mother. Your ass is mine, and I have your balls in my hand. Don't cross me. You're lucky I didn't carry out my original plans for you. It's far from over between us, you scumbag. You'll be hearing from me soon. Got it? Jasper nodded silently as I loomed over him, a silent testament to the disruption of their evening plans. As I made to depart, Polly seized my arm, her voice pleading. Henry, can I please come home with you? I just want to be with you. Please. I recoiled from her touch as if scorched by fire, my disgust palpable. I have no desire to be seen with a traitor like you, I retorted, my disdain evident. You disgust me. I'm ashamed to have been your husband. Admittedly, I was far from gracious in that moment, but frankly, I didn't care. Despite the tumult of emotions within me, I took pride in my ability to contain my jealousy and anger. I had given her a week to ponder her actions. Now it was time to see what would unfold. The following morning, I heard her return home late in the evening, quietly retreating to the guest suite, a tacit acknowledgement of the strained atmosphere between us. The next morning, as we crossed paths in the kitchen, I remained resolute in my determination for retribution. Good morning, cheater, I greeted her coldly, my tone dripping with contempt. How is my cheating wife today? She flinched, her gaze dropping to her coffee cup as she uttered the familiar refrain of every cheating spouse caught in the act. Honey, we need to talk. Listen, there's nothing to discuss, Polly, I interjected, cutting off her attempt at reconciliation. I know everything. I know the extent of your betrayal, the duration of your affair, the disparaging remarks you made about me and our marriage. I witnessed the things you did with him, the way you dressed for him. I heard all the comparisons, all the lies, all the deceit. You took me for a fool, and I can't fathom how foolish you were to believe you could get away with it. Unless there's something I've overlooked, there's nothing left to say. I'm the fool, not you, Polly confessed, tears streaming down her cheeks. I don't know why I let it happen. You gave me everything I ever wanted, and I love you regardless of what you heard in those videos. You have to know I never meant to hurt you, and I never wanted you to find out. Exactly my point, Polly, I responded, my voice heavy with disappointment. You never wanted me to find out. You wanted to keep it a secret, to continue lying and sleeping with your lover behind my back. That's the crux of the matter, Polly. I can forgive infidelity. After all, we're all human and make mistakes. But this wasn't a mistake. You chose this, and you chose to keep it a secret, to lie, cheat, and conceal your affair. I love you, Polly, but as Tina Turner says, what's love got to do with it? My trust is shattered, and I'm left wondering if I ever truly knew you. How many other men have there been? How many times have you returned to my bed after being with your lover? I'm so disgusted, I can barely find the words. Sobbing now, Polly realized the depth of my pain and the gravity of her actions. There were no more excuses or justifications, only an admission of guilt. Okay, I'm guilty, and I hate myself for it, she admitted, her voice choked with remorse. There was never anyone else, and no matter what I say, I know you won't be able to forgive me for what I've done. But I don't want a divorce. I'll do whatever it takes to stay with you. I think I need counseling, and maybe we can go together to figure out what's wrong with me. Please, don't leave me. I paused for a moment, considering her plea. Polly, you can go to counseling, do whatever you need to do, and I'll support you, I replied finally. But I can't live with a woman who could discard me so callously. Your actions and the words you said revealed your true feelings, and I can't see a way forward with someone who feels that way about me. I know there are other women out there who would cherish the chance to be with me. You had your opportunity, and you chose to throw it away. Enjoy your week here with the girls. Try to explain why you're leaving. I won't speak ill of you, but it's important that you tell them you're leaving and why, I stated firmly. In the divorce agreement, I've granted you full access to our daughters at all times, but they will be living with me. However, if you continue to engage in promiscuous behavior and set a negative example for our daughters, I will have to reconsider the terms of your visitations. I'll treat you better than you deserve and help you maintain your relationship with our daughters, but I have 2 questions for you to consider before you answer. Firstly, why? Why did you risk everything for this? And secondly, was it worth it? The following Monday, I contacted Jasper and arranged to meet him for lunch on Wednesday. After convincing him of the importance of our meeting, I expressed my profound disappointment in how he had contributed to the destruction of my marriage and hinted at the potential consequences. Over lunch, I outlined the repercussions of his actions and detailed my expectations for restitution. You're going to pay for Polly's rent and car payments for the next 3 years, I declared firmly. Consider it your punishment. You're getting off easy, Jasper. Despite everything, I still care for my cheating wife and want her to be taken care of. Since you played a role in this, you'll comply with my demands. This arrangement will help Polly get back on her feet after I kick her out. If you fail to follow through, I'll ensure you lose your job and that Regina learns about your infidelity. Consider it a lifeline, Jasper. This is the consequence of seducing a married woman. People like you need to understand that actions have repercussions. Why not pursue single women instead of tearing apart families? That was a cowardly move, Jasper. Epilogue. Despite my anger and hurt, I made sure to treat Polly with decency, allowing her to visit the children and maintaining a cordial relationship. However, she never managed to regain my respect or trust. Jasper faithfully made his payments every month, knowing the consequences if he failed to comply. Polly struggled to provide satisfactory answers to my questions. While she expressed remorse for her actions and admitted they weren't worth it, she couldn't explain the underlying motivation. Now living alone, without a boyfriend and the love she once had, she faced the consequences of her choices. I could have inflicted more pain upon her, but the loss of her family and my love was punishment enough. Despite undergoing counseling, Polly couldn't offer a satisfactory explanation for her actions. Her best attempt was, I don't know why, it just happened. It had nothing to do with you or our marriage because I do love you and was happy with our life together, but it was something new and exciting. I screwed up. Unable to contain my frustration, I confronted her. If you were truly happy, why did you dress up and wear provocative clothing for him? Why engage in behaviors with him that you never did with me? It just happened isn't a sufficient answer. You repeatedly chose to pursue this affair and dress to entice him each time. Yet you claim to love me. Perhaps one day you'll have the courage to provide a genuine explanation. I believe you owe us that much. For those of us who have been cheated on, this remains an unsolvable riddle. Thanks to the actions of these 2 cheating couples, I'm uncertain if I can ever fully trust or commit myself to another woman again. It's a sad reality, but one that I must come to terms with. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.